Warning, this episode contains content that may not be suitable for some listeners. Graphic depictions of violence involving a brutal attack and ultimately a murder by an axe will be discussed. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
Dark world of ritualistic child abuse.
Witchcraft.
They would sacrifice animals.
Does it make you want to hate murder, or does it make you want to do murder?
Let's explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. Welcome back to Rogue Darkness, the podcast that uncovers how the misinterpretations and misinformation surrounding witchcraft, the occult, and other beliefs have led many to do unthinkable crimes. From ritualistic killings and the demons that live in all of us, to exploration of the macabre and delving deep into the unknown. Let's explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. I'm your host of the Grim and Gruesome, Raven. This episode is going to cover something I find extremely fascinating: when legend meets reality. Delving into the true stories behind some of the world's most horrifying legends is truly something I love doing. And when I covered the Christmas Scarecrow, it really made me realize how much of a fan I personally am of legends and lore, and finding out the origins and the truth behind them. The legend we'll be discussing today stems from some very real and horrifying crimes that took place in the early 1970s in Fairfax County, Virginia, that held a heavy grip on the minds of the locals there, and for many, it still does. So without further ado, let's go rogue and get right into today's chilling, legendary tale. The story of the notorious Bunnyman, and how, if you follow a few grim steps, you may just be the killer's next unfortunate victim. According to an article from WAMU.org, one local recounted the legend, and this is how the story goes. Taking place in 1904, there was an asylum not far from the Colchester Road Bridge, or overpass, in Fairfax. The local residents there didn't like the idea of mental patients out roaming near their homes, and since many of the mental patients would like to take refuge by the bridge, they had it shut down. And after that, all of the patients loitering by the bridge were taken by bus to Lorton Prison. When the bus was heading to the prison, all of a sudden it swerved, the driver losing control of the wheel, and it crashed. They were able to locate all of the inmates that were on the bus, except for one. The escaped mental patient was a man by the name of Douglas Griffin. After the bus crash, Douglas had up and disappeared, vanishing without a trace. Weeks had passed, and rabbit corpses began appearing in the woods. It was assumed that Douglas was eating bunnies within the forest as a means to stay alive. This went on for a while, numerous bunny carcasses popping up among the woodlands. Then, on Halloween night, a group of kids were hanging around the bridge, not expecting anything eventful. The kids reported seeing some sort of bright light or an orb, and then, in a blink of the eye, they were all strung up like bunnies, completely gutted, with their bodies left hanging from the bridge. The missing mental patient was, of course, assumed to be the killer. And the rumor goes, if you come to the bridge on a Halloween night, at the stroke of midnight, you'll end up just like those kids did on that fateful Halloween night, gutted and left on display just as the bunnies he had killed many times before. Now, the origin of this eerie legend stems from some very real events. Historian archivist Brian A. Conley from the Fairfax County Public Library has extensively researched the Bunnyman legend. Through his research, he has been able to locate two distinct incidents of a man, reportedly dressed up in a rabbit costume, who would stalk around the town, threatening people with an axe. The first of the two reported incidents was said to have been reported on the evening of October 19, 1970, by U.S. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée. The couple were visiting some family in Burke, Virginia, and got more than they had bargained for. Around midnight, Robert and his wife parked their car in a field off of Guinea Road to visit an uncle who lived across the street from where the car was parked. As they sat in the front seat with the car running, they noticed something moving outside of their rear window. In a matter of seconds, the front passenger window was abruptly smashed, and there was a white-clad humanoid figure standing outside of the broken window, reportedly yelling at them that they were trespassing on private property. Robert quickly put the car into reverse and began to drive off while the man continued to yell that they were trespassing. As they drove away, Robert's wife gasped as she noticed a hatchet was lying on the car floor, a hatchet that had not been there before. The couple proceeded to report the incident to the authorities, and when giving them a description of the man, Robert claimed that the man was wearing a white suit with long bunny ears, while his fiancée claimed the man did not have bunny ears, rather it was some sort of headdress. This made the tale much more entertaining to some, and the tabloids decided to stick with the notion of bunny ears, making the name Bunnyman to initially take form. The second reported incident had occurred on the evening of October 29, 1970, just 10 days after the first encounter, when a construction security guard named Paul Phillips approached a man that had been reportedly loitering on the porch of an unfinished home in Kings Park West off of Guinea Road, the same street where Robert Bennett and his fiancée had their car window bashed in. Paul has been reported saying that the man was wearing a gray, black, and white bunny costume. He appeared to be in his late teens or early 20s, around 5 feet and 18 inches tall, and likely weighed around 175 pounds. Upon Paul approaching him, the young man took out a long-handled axe and began aggressively hacking at one of the porch posts, all the while reportedly shouting, "You are trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." Frightened at the whole ordeal, Paul immediately notified the authorities. The Fairfax County Police then opened up an investigation into both of the reported incidents, only to have them both eventually closed due to a lack of viable evidence. Despite its short-lived ordeal, in the weeks following the incidents, more than 50 people had reportedly reached out to the local authorities, claiming to have seen the notorious axe-wielding Bunnyman. Several newspapers, including the Washington Post, reported that the Bunnyman had even eaten a man's runaway cat while it was still alive. As with most tales that get passed around by word of mouth, like a good old game of telephone, the eerie legend of the escaped mental hospital patient, donning a bunny costume and wielding an axe, the Bunnyman of Fairfax turned into a local legend that many, to this day, fear. In 1973, a student at the University of Maryland College Park, Patricia Johnson, researched the legendary tale as well as the corresponding crimes that were reported, and ended up submitting a research paper that chronicled a total of 54 variations on the two incidents and their stories. This shows how stories can be drastically altered, little by little, with facts being morphed into lies, and soon taking on a completely different form. Due to its ties to the urban legend of the Bunnyman, the Colchester Overpass has been a destination for many paranormal and horror enthusiasts, causing authorities to monitor its accessibility. It's been reported that on Halloween in 2011, over 200 people, some from as far away as Pennsylvania and Maryland, came to see the overpass, only to be turned away by the authorities who were conducting a 14-hour traffic checkpoint in the area. So that was the legend of the infamous Fairfax Bunnyman, and how the true incidents behind the disturbing character differ drastically depending on who you talk to. Definitely let me know your thoughts on this episode, and if you have any questions regarding it, or just want to chat, feel free to contact me at roguedarknesspod@gmail.com. You can also reach me directly on Instagram or Twitter at rogue_darkness. You know I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts on cases and topics that I discuss. As always, if you like what you hear on Rogue Darkness, please consider spreading the word by sharing it with your family, your friends, and basically anyone else who you think would like it. Getting the word out there to others and sharing by word of mouth or virtually is the best way for others to find the show. Also be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Podchaser, or anywhere else you're able to leave a review. By rating, reviewing, subscribing, and sharing, you're directly helping the show out, and you know it's always greatly appreciated. To stay up to date on any announcements and to see upcoming episode hints, be sure to follow me on all of my socials, Instagram and Twitter handle at rogue_darkness. Also be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see the episodes slowly coming out in video format. To get exclusive access to bonus content, shoutouts, and more, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/roguedarkness. And lastly, you can go one step further to show your love for the pod and get yourself some Rogue Darkness merch through my Bonfire merch store. All the links for everything are down in the description box of every episode. And be sure to stay tuned after the outro music to hear a small promo from one of my fellow podcasters, Dealing Justice. It's such an amazing podcast, so I highly suggest you go give them a listen. And with that said, that concludes this week's episode of Rogue Darkness. The darkness is all around us, and I can confidently say that reality truly is more terrifying than fiction. Until next time.
What's the nature of your emergency?
Your world can change in the blink of an eye.
He walked into the bedroom and you know that she had been murdered.
So he's running up and down, screaming, "Oh my God, someone call 911. There are two men killing a girl."
I know my son, and he would not go that long without saying anything to anyone.
Safety can be an illusion and reality a nightmare.
So how do you steal a person, a grown person?
Unspeakable crimes can penetrate any small town, big family, pretty face, or innocent child. And in the wake of a loved one's murder or disappearance, there is nothing more cruel or desperate as silence.
Why won't people talk about it? That's another thing. People don't want to talk about it around here.
For the families of the missing and murdered, they gambled with their sanity as they lose hope in closure and settle for justice. That's where the cold case playing cards come in. In each episode of the Dealing Justice podcast, your hosts Jennifer Dubisak and Lori Jennings will spotlight one card from the cold case playing card deck. Hear the victim's story from the friends and family who knew them best.
Her mom will never stop fighting until she finds out what happens to her daughter.
Learn about the crime and help close the case. Welcome to Season 2. We're not just playing cards, we're dealing justice.